know you all know Officer Dan, and he has come to give you a full hour of his perspective of babysitters and what he as a policeman in the community can help you with and what he expects of you as a babysitter. Remember the questions that you had yesterday that I asked you to write down, the questions that were perfect to ask Officer Dan. You're on.
Thanks. Who can tell me why you're here to learn about being babysitters today?
Money?
Of course, right? How many people are here to make money? Okay. What's your number one responsibility as a babysitter? Watch the baby. Watch the kids, okay? Kids are very quick. It doesn't take much time, and all of a sudden, you know, you turn your back to them, and they're gone. How many of you have young brothers or sisters? Okay. Keep an eye on them at home sometimes, and you'll see how quickly they can disappear from you. Something catches their eye, and they take off. One thing I'm going to tell you throughout this whole thing is not to be afraid to call us. If you're out there and you have, you know, a good reason to call us, don't hesitate to call. That's what we're there for. One of the things, when you get somebody's house, and I've got these babysitting memo pads that I'm going to pass out to you in a few minutes. This has all the information on it that you need. One of the things it has on there is the name of the person you're babysitting and the address. In case you have to call us, in case of an emergency, you can tell us where you're at. What happens sometimes is, in an emergency, people panic. And I'll ask you, you know, if I answer the phone at the police station and ask you, well, what's your address? What do you think people tell us sometimes?
Their address where they live.
The address where they live, not the address where they're babysitting. We'll ask you, well, what's the phone number there? And sometimes people don't have the phone number written right on the phone, so they don't know it. Or they'll give you the phone number where they live. On this, it has a place for the person's name, address, and the phone number where you're at. Keep this by the phone in case you need it. It has an area in here where you can get a hold of the parents at work if you're babysitting during the day. This information is important for you, all right? And you'll learn this as we go on today. It has an area for special instructions. Special instructions as if you got anybody that's supposed to be coming over to pick up anything? You got anybody who's supposed to be coming over maybe to take care of the pool or put oil in the furnace, things like that. Any special instructions for the kids. Right? The children's names, their ages, and what time they're supposed to go to bed. Because you're going to get that kid that says, oh no, Mom says I can stay up till 10 o'clock, when you know the bedtime is 8 o'clock. Make sure you get that bedtime. We will be at the name, the address, and the phone number. And that's important. Also, it has, if you can't reach us, please call, and we have an area up there for 4 places they can call. Get places where, you know, you can reach somebody in case of an emergency. What happens if I go out with my wife and I have one of you babysit, and we're going to go out to eat at a restaurant? You call us at the restaurant, and they say, well, nobody here. We just left. Now what do you do? Right. Rather than just have one place where you can call somebody, make sure you can call somebody else in case they can't be reached. And find out what time they're going to be home. And you can write that down as well. One of the things you want to find out too, they're going to be home, let's say, at 11 o'clock. Some of you might have to be in at 10 o'clock. If you have any curfews, like mom and dad says, I can't babysit past 10, make sure you tell them. The telephone, keep the telephone lines open. What if I, as a parent, something happened and I had to get a hold of you and tell you I was going to be late? Maybe I was going to be 5 or 10 minutes late and I wanted to call. And if the phone is busy, now there's two things going through my mind. One, maybe something happened to my kids and you're calling an ambulance or the police or fire department for something. Or two, I didn't hire too good of a babysitter because all she does is spend her time on the phone. Okay, keep that telephone line open. It's important. Stay alert when you're out there babysitting. A lot of times you're out babysitting. Perfect example is during the day. The kid goes outside and he plays. Go outside with him. Don't say, go ahead, go outside and I'll stay in the house, watch TV. Stay with that child. How many people here have pools in their backyards? Who can tell me what the danger of having a pool is?
Kid might go out and fall in.
Okay, what if you're outside, all right, and you're playing with the child, and the phone rings? Take him with you. Don't leave him outside, all right? Take the child with you, go in the house, answer the phone, and then when you're done, you can go back outside with the child. Don't rush and say, oh my God, maybe it's the parents calling, right? And run out into the house and leave the child alone. Make sure you get the child with you at all times. It only takes a few minutes for a child to walk away and, fall into a pool. And if you get tied up on the phone for anything, you're going to come back and you'll have an emergency on your hands. What if you're outside playing with the child and for some reason you get distracted, you're looking at something else, and you turn back and little Billy's not there? You tell me how you're going to handle that situation.
Calling his name and looking for him.
How much time are you going to spend calling his name and looking for him? Okay, you call his name, you look for him, he doesn't answer. Five to 10 minutes?
Well, you should call a policeman to start looking for him, because if you have a pool, you can fall in it, and in 4 minutes they can use, like, I heard they could get brainwashed.
If you call the child's name and he does not answer to you and does not come to you, don't waste time, looking around, calling the child's name. I know what's going to go through your mind. You're going to panic and say, oh my God, I've lost a child. I can't tell anybody about this because I'll get in trouble. All right? You're not going to get in trouble. Call us. All right? It's a lot quicker for us to get down there. And the sooner you call, the sooner we can get down, the sooner we can start looking for the child. Okay? Every minute counts. How many people here have woods in the back of their house? It's very easy for a child all of a sudden to be playing in the yard and something catches his attention. Whether it be a squirrel, a bird, for some reason they just look curious, they start walking towards the woods. You call, yeah, I'm more curious, I'm looking at something, she'll find me sooner or later. But what you want to do is you want to call us, let us get down there and help you find the child. Don't worry about somebody yelling at you or, saying, well, you messed up. It happens to parents. Okay, we've had parents actually, having their child in the backyard cooking supper, and they keep an eye in the backyard. They keep cooking supper, looking in the backyard, and the child's not there. They call us. They're not afraid to call us, and we get down there and we start looking for the child. And sometimes we find them hiding in the house or, hiding in the woods somewhere. It's better to get us down there and have us help you to find the child than not to be able to find the child at all. That's why it's good, you know, practice when you're out there playing with them. Keep an eye on them. They're real quick. They can take off really quick. Now, if I'm a parent and I decide, you know, let's say I'm divorced from my wife and you're babysitting my child. I don't have custody of that child, but for some reason, I know you're babysitting. So I decide to stop in and visit my son Joey. You gonna let me in the house?
No, because the babysitter doesn't know me.
But I'm his father. You can let me in the house.
How do you contact the
But why would you call the police? I mean, I'm his father. I'm just here to visit him.
because you don't have touched it. You don't have like seen it.
Sure I do. I just talked to my wife a while ago, and she said, you know, she probably just forgot to tell you. I'm sorry. She forgot to tell you. She's a really nice lady, you know. Things just didn't work out between us. But, you know, she just happened to had 1,000 things on her mind. I know how she is. She forgot to tell you all about it. I'm just going to take him out. I'll take him to Canopy Lake, and I'll be right back. Is that all right? I'll give you an extra $5, all right? No. Listen, what time's my wife going to be home? Around 5 o'clock? All right. I'll tell you what. I'll have him back by 4:30.
No,
I'll give you an extra $5. You don't even have to do nothing. You don't even have to babysit, and you get an extra $5. She'll pay you on top of that.
she gave me no knowledge that you're going to stop by and so.
But she just forgot. You know, she is forgetful sometimes.
Well, then I'll have to call her and ask her if it's okay.
But you don't have to call her.
Well, I'm sorry, but I did.
Okay. At that point, okay, if she would call the mother, and if the mother said no, and the father was still there, what would you do? Right. You call us, right? You don't have to get into an argument with anybody and say, you know, well, you know, you can't take them or anything like that. You call us, we'll help you out, you know, in that decision. That's what we're there for. Because I'm sure if you let him go and the mother came home, she'd be a little upset at you. Especially if he wasn't supposed to be seeing her. All right? So make sure that you call us, we'll help you, you know. And that was good, you know, you call the mother. And the mother will be able to tell you, yes, he can take him, or no, he can't take him. How about if you're in the house and you're babysitting and the telephone rings? We'll play another one here, okay? Who wants to be the babysitter this time? Okay? All right, you're the babysitter, all right? I'm calling for Mrs. Jones. Is she home?
She's in the shower right now.
Could you tell her her boss is on the phone? I need to speak to her.
Hold on a minute. she's in the shower and she can't come out.
She has to come out right now because, you know, she brought this paperwork home with her, and it's a very important deal. And if this deal, you know, gets blown, you know, we're probably both going to be out of a job.
I'll tell her you called.
No, if I need to speak to her right now, because if I don't speak to her, okay, she's going to be out of a job and I'm going to be out of a job.
She's busy.
Well, you tell her who it is, and I'm sure she'll come to the phone.
She's busy. She's in the shower and she can't come out.
Bring the phone in the shower. You got a portable phone there or something?
No. She's busy and she's in the shower.
I'll wait.
She'll call you back.
That's all right. I'll hold on. I'll wait till she gets out of the shower. It won't take her that long to get out of the shower.
Goodbye.
See, she should have done that a long time ago. She should have hung up on me a long time ago. All right? Don't argue with people on the phone. All right? There's no need for that. You just tell them the person can't come to the phone right now, and if the person insists, you hang up. But now I call you back. All right? I want to talk to Mrs. Jones.
She's in the bathtub.
You told me that a while ago. Isn't she out by now?
She's a very clean lady.
Well, I need to talk to her.
I have to go. Bye.
Now what should you do?
Please keep calling me.
That's right. Okay? Call someone. Call, one of the emergency people that you have listed on your babysitting guide, or call us. Call the police and tell them that you keep getting these calls. Tell them where you're at and what's going on. Now, how about at nighttime? How many people here might do babysitting at nighttime? You're out babysitting at night. What do we need to do to the house? Lock it up, okay? Lock it up nice and tight. Make sure your windows are locked, your doors are locked. How about the shades? Huh? Pull down the shades? Okay. One of the things you might want to ask the people as well is, can I leave a light on outside when I'm out babysitting? You might feel a little more comfortable if you leave one of the spotlights on outside while they're gone. So you're in the house and you hear a noise outside. What are you going to do? Why? It's only a noise. It's a little noise. It could be a raccoon that knocked over some trash cans. Wouldn't you feel a little silly?
Yeah, but it's better to be safe than
Turn the light on, and if it's just a raccoon, it's gonna get scared and go away.
You going to go check it out? You do exactly what she said. You call the police. You hear a noise outside, you call us. In the past, we've had to go to calls where somebody is home alone and they've heard something. It's heard like somebody knocked over the trash cans. Well, we've gone in the past, we found maybe an animal in the trash can or somebody, something knocked it over. We don't mind going to that.
My mom says you have to pay for the calls.
No, you don't pay for the calls. The only time you pay is your parents when they pay those tax bills that just came in, just recently, all right? And they look at it and they go, oh my God, look at all that I have to pay. That's what they're paying. Okay, so don't be afraid to use us. It doesn't cost any more if we go to your house 5 times or if we go to your house 1 time.
Is that police number the same in every city or town? Because
No.
what if you only know the police number in your town and you dial that number? And you're
Call
in
the
Salem?
operator.
That's why on the babysitting memo guide, all right, there's a place right there for the phone number that's blank. And you can write down the phone number. You get all that information, the number of the fire department, the police department, the doctor's phone number.
Does 911 work everywhere or just in certain places?
Okay, how many people here think 911 works in Londonderry? Okay. We don't have 911 service, but if you dial it, all right, it's going to go to Derry, depending where you live. If you live in this way southern part of the town, where you have maybe a Windham or a Hudson exchange, you're not going to get through. But if you have a 432, 434, 437 number, okay, what's going to happen is if you dial 911, it's going to go to the Derry and police department and ambulance. So then what they will do in turn is they will call us and tell us, that there's a problem like down on Chase Road or on South Road. They'll give us the address, they'll give us the phone number there, they'll tell us what the problem is. Anytime you use public service, which is the police department, the fire department, your parents don't get charged for that. Okay. I'm not saying now, you call us when, little Jimmy doesn't want to eat his supper or something. You don't call us for that, all right? Or if Jimmy doesn't want to go to bed. But if you have a problem where you get prank phone calls, you hear something outside, and you call us. Don't be afraid to call us. That's what we're there for. What happens with 911 is, and this happened to me, my little boy and accidentally pressed the button. I have a phone where you can program all the numbers, and I programmed the emergency number for the ambulance, which was 911. Okay, because that's where our ambulance comes from, is Derry. So he accidentally picked up the phone one day and pressed that button. I saw the phone was off the hook, so I put the phone back on the hook. Next thing you know, the Derry Police Department called me up. And they said, did you just call 911? You know, and I said, no. And they said, well, somebody from, you know, and they gave me my address, they gave me my phone number, they told me where I lived, you know, who I was, and I said, yes. And they said, well, somebody must, you know, have accidentally pressed 911. And that's when I found out, you know, that my little 2-year-old at the time had picked it up and just pressed the number. Okay. What if you do have to make an emergency call? What are some of the things you have to do? Yeah, first thing, stay calm. Don't overreact, don't panic. I know it's easy to say that when you're standing here, you know, and I know I go through it myself. If my son gets hurt, you know, I keep saying to myself, don't panic, stay calm, but it's hard to do. You can get more done if you stay calm, because when you're on the phone, they're going to be asking you questions. Okay? Talk slow. Now, you want to call the police department because you've heard some noise outside. First thing you do is you stay calm. Okay? You want to keep a level head so you can answer the questions they're going to be asking you. Should you tell them who you are?
Yeah.
Tell them who you are. That's very important. What else you need to tell them?
Where you are.
Tell them where you are.
What if the phone lines are cut?
Boy, she's got an imagination, I'll tell you. If the phone lines are cut, then I would go to a neighbor's house.
Yeah, but if they're outside.
If they're outside,
Because you hear something and then you go to the phone and you go to call and the phone lines are cut and you know it's someone outside probably.
we usually don't have phone lines that are cut, so you really don't have to worry about that, you know.
Maybe directions.
Okay? They might want to ask you, to, you know, give them directions.
Tell them what happened.
Okay? There's one more thing that's very important. The phone number. Because what happens if you get disconnected? Okay? Then they can call you back. All right? And tell them what happened. Stay calm and tell them everything, you know, why you're in trouble. Now, if you've heard a noise outside and you're really scared, ask the person that answered the phone at the police station if you can stay on the line until a policeman gets there. And they'll stay on the line with you. Why would you want to do that?
So if it gets hurt, you won't have to call back.
Okay?
For comfort.
For comfort, you know, it's important knowing that there's somebody else at the end of the line that you can talk to, that you know they're sending help. And the other thing is, when a policeman gets to the door and rings the doorbell, all right, that you don't get terrified, the person on the other end of the line, because she's a police dispatcher, she can talk to the officer when they're out of the cruiser. They have portable radios. And what happens, she can tell them, you on the phone, say, you know, that's a police officer. He's at your house now, and he's going up to the door. So rather than you just say, you know, I need help. I'm at 67 South Road, and, you know, my name is Jamie, and please hurry, and hang up, all right? And then you hear a knock on the door. What are you going to do? Would you kind of scared to answer that door? Yeah. What happens if you are babysitting and somebody comes up to the door and says, "Hi, I'm Joe. I'm here to fix the oil burner."
You should check your pad to see if the person you're babysitting for wrote it down. That's a good.
Okay, so you check your pad and you find out that you don't have any indication at all that Joe's here to fix the furnace. But you see, my company charges $80 an hour. And the person you're babysitting for, they're going to have to pay that, even if I'm not going to fix the furnace.
Then you call the parent and you tell them, is so-and-so supposed to go? Well, you know that from the past. You just call the police if they won't go.
Okay. She's quick. Right? Rather than argue with the person, you can do two things. Call the parent where they're at and find out, if anybody's supposed to be there fixing the furnace. And if you can't get a hold of them, call the police and tell them. Say, I got this guy in the front door who won't leave. And what do you think we're going to do? Yeah, we'll come down and, take care of the problem for you. Okay. Then you call us. Yeah. And that's a good question. What happens if, we go down and we tell this person they have to leave and, come back when the parents are home. And like she said, what if they come back? Would you want to call us again? Oh, come on, you're going to bring us there twice in a row? Who's going to call me again? Better see all these hands go up. Come on. You all call back. A good thing for you to get into a habit of is, let's say you are going to babysit, and the parent says to you, well, while I'm out, I'm going to have the man come down, he's going to adjust the furnace, or somebody's going to come down and check the pool, or somebody's going to come down and, fertilize the lawn, or somebody's going to do this. You tell them, I have rules as well. And I would rather, and I insist, matter of fact, that these things be done when you're home, not when I'm babysitting, because I have enough responsibility. I have the responsibility of your children, and that is a big responsibility for me. Insist on that. Okay, don't be there to let the furnace man in or anything else. You're there for babysitting, to taking care of the child. Anything else can be done when they're home. What if you get home, the parents get home, and they're going to give you a ride to your house, and like you said, they've been drinking.
You don't go with them, like you tell them that I have to call my mom or something, and you call
You don't have to
mom.
call your mom and wake your mom up. I'm already up. The car's already out of the garage.
I have to call her anyways.
I'll have you home in no time.
That's okay.
Who's going to go with that person? Nobody. Call your parents, okay? Don't ever get into a car with a person who's been drinking. Doesn't matter at what time you might have to call your parents up. I'm sure your parents would appreciate you coming home in one piece. Boy, you got your hands full, I'll tell you. One of the first thing you should have done is when the kid wanted to go downstairs and play Nintendo, you go downstairs and you play Nintendo with him, with the other kid.
No, but the other kid wanted to come upstairs and watch TV.
Well, we'll go downstairs, we'll watch Nintendo, we'll play Nintendo for a while, then we'll go upstairs and we'll watch TV. Then you're the boss, you have to make sure that they have rules that they're going to follow. They're going to follow your rules, okay? They're not going to control you. You're the babysitter. You're the one that has to be the boss. So you have to make a compromise. You're going to watch TV first, all of us together, or we're going to go downstairs, play Nintendo, then we'll come upstairs and we'll watch TV. You don't want to keep them separated. Because, again, like from the beginning, your child is there, you're responsible for them, and you have to keep an eye on them. Are you keeping an eye on him if you're upstairs watching TV? No. Who knows what could happen to that child downstairs? You know, could fall off a chair, fall off the couch, you know. It's important that you let the parents know how the child acted as well. Because you think for 1 minute that the child is not going to tell the parents if you did something wrong? The child will tell their parents. If you did something like we're on the telephone, okay, spending time talking to your friend on the phone, and they wanted something like we did at the beginning of this program, they're going to tell their parents. All she did was talk on the phone. Anybody else have any questions?
If the babysitter does witness any abusive action on the parent's part towards the child, abuse beyond the point of natural, normal discipline, what then do they do? Now, the normal scenario would be that they would go home and tell their parent, and oftentimes the parent's response was, oh, I'm sure you're exaggerating, that can't be what had happened. I think they need some information as to what might be the next logical step.
Okay. In a situation like that, if you tell your parents and tell them everything that you've seen, ask them to call us. You can't force them to call us, but you can tell. The other thing you can do is when you come to school, you can tell Mrs. Pluff about it. You can tell me about it. Okay. You need to tell somebody who's going to look into the matter. It's very important.
I have a friend. She's babysitting like one of her neighbors, and this little kid. He turned the light on, and the dog came close. His dog came close to him, and she had to pull him away before the dog lit him on fire. He lit the dog on fire.
Now, how old was this kid?
I don't know. Well, he almost lit the dog on fire, but he was. I don't know. He's in second or first.
Who can tell me what was wrong with that right now?
Why was he playing with matches or a lighter?
That's right. Why was he playing with matches or a lighter? He shouldn't even have had that in his hand. I'll tell you, you have to be on top of these kids all the time. They grab something, if it's a lighter or a match, no, you take it away from them. They scream, they jump up and down, you take it away from them. You don't let them play with matches or lighters. There are certain things, your kids are a little older, you know what's right and wrong, and you know what, is going to hurt a child. It's like if you have a little baby. Are you going to leave small items around on the table so they can just grab it and put it in their mouth? Make sure that the area is clear, especially if a kid is on a walker. Okay, my little boy right now, who's 5 months old, okay, he's in a walker, and he goes all over the place. We're constantly chasing him. Like, take this away, take that away. My 5-year-old, okay, he's got little trays and stuff that he puts his toys in, but now the 5-month-old can get into that. So we constantly have to take that away from him. We have to position it so he can't get into those things. These are all things you have to look at. Keep an eye on that stuff.
My cousin was babysitting for my other cousins, but they were in separate families. And she went to answer the phone, and one cousin's 5 and the other one was 2 months, or not 2 months, 5 months, and like was in a walker, like you said, and they have a gate in front of the stairs. She went to answer the phone, and she figured they'd be all right because there was a gate there, but the 5-year-old figured out how to open up the gate, and then she wasn't keeping an eye on them, and the baby went down the stairs. I didn't do it, it wasn't me.
No, but we had a situation, a few years ago where a mother was, in the backyard with the baby, and the baby, was just out playing. Mother gets a telephone call, runs into the house, answers the phone, comes out, and finds the baby in the pool. Luckily for the baby, the the police real close by, you know, the fire department came real quick, and the ambulance, and the baby was saved. But had she stayed on the phone a little longer, or let's say she got off the phone and said, well, I'm just going to go put a load of wash in, you know, or get tied up doing something else, maybe somebody came at the door, the child would have been dead today.
Isn't that sort of the same thing with baby Jessica? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The girl that fell down the well.
Yeah. You have to keep an eye on these children at all times. Now, one of the other things I want to talk to you about a little bit, if somebody takes you home, let's say a man or a woman, they take you home after you've done babysitting, and they touch you in places that you're not comfortable. And some of this could happen to you. Who can tell me what they're going to do? And what if nobody believes you? You're going to tell your parents.
Tell them to set the car and get out.
Tell the person not to touch you, okay? And that you will tell somebody. But now, what if the person says, I'm sorry, I had a little to drink tonight. I didn't really mean anything I did or said. You know, I'll give you an extra $20 and, you know, forget the whole thing. Okay? What are you going to do? Who can tell me what they're going to do in a situation like that? You're going to take the $20 and not say anything? Okay, you're not going to babysit for them. But how do you know it didn't happen to somebody else that babysat for them? What else are you going to do? Tell your parents about it. And tell your parents to call us and report it. Okay, make sure that they call us and report it to us.
If you had, like, if any of your other friends have ever babysat for your people, you could ask them.
Mm-hmm. But maybe they might be too ashamed to say anything. You know, maybe it did happen to them, and maybe they just want to forget it. Right?
Like, just say thanks anyway, and then call your parents to get a ride home, and just tell your parents about it.
Yeah, you're already in the car.
Well,
She's on the ball,
no, he's awake. And you just say thanks anyway, and then you tell your parents about it, and you can talk to your parents and decide if you want to babysit them again.
Do you have a question in the back? No?
Someone said yesterday that you can't report it to the police if you don't have anything on it to go on. If it just happened like that,
If you don't have any what to go on?
anything to go on, like if they did something to you, but nothing to
Isn't your word good enough?
Yeah, but there's lines. I never touched that person. Why
No,
would I do
yeah,
that?
I mean, they could do something, but the police could say, sorry, but they could say something like, well, you
We'll
know.
stop picking on the police. Okay? We're there to help you. We're going to, you know, we'll investigate it. You know, that's why it's important that you report it to us. Because you don't know, so it could have happened to somebody else. So call, you know.
On that was when we were talking about this, and I said that if a look or something that was said that was uncomfortable to them, that may not sound or even be an abusive type of thing, that perhaps is not reportable to the police. But in fact, if what was said or the look was uncomfortable, that they should not babysit for that family again.
But I'm talking, you know, if you're driving home and somebody touches you, they have no right touching you. Okay? It's your body, and nobody has the right to touch you.
But, like, if you tell the police and report it, they're not going to believe you because you have no evidence that they...
What do you mean we're not going to believe you?
Yeah, but they're going to think...
You have liar written on your forehead or something? No?
But they're going to think that you're just some kid trying to make up stories to get someone in trouble.
No. That's not what we're going to think. What we have to do is we have to stay impartial, which means we listen and we look into everything, and from there We've talked to everybody, we make a decision. And hopefully we make that right decision.
On Rescue 911, some kid called and they thought it was a prank joke, so they didn't go. But then he called again and they said, "Can you talk? Can your mother talk?" And she said, "I'm choking," and so they came over.
Well, if you call the police a couple of times and say that something's happening and it really isn't, and they find out and stuff, but you keep calling and they still believe you, and they come and nothing happens, then once it's like a real emergency and you call, will they still believe you and come over anyway?
We have a responsibility. We have to go, okay? If you call us and you say, you know, I'm babysitting and I heard a noise outside and I'm really scared, we have to go. If we didn't go and something happened to you, we'd be in a lot of trouble, all right? We have to respond to every call we get, and we do that. And if it's prank calls, you know, then we take action on that too.
Yeah, but like, wouldn't you get in trouble if you were joking around and calling the police?
If you're joking around, yeah, you would get in trouble. That's why it's important when you call that you're not joking around, that you really need the help. Because if you're joking around and we've got a policeman going to your house for no reason whatsoever and you know there's nothing wrong, in the meantime somebody else is calling for help and we can't get to them right away, we have serious problems. It's an offense that you can, yeah, it's an offense that you can be charged with and, you know, go to court. And the telephone company also takes action on those calls. Take your phone right out.
If you say that you'll believe us if we tell you a story, will you not believe the other person that we're telling you about?
No, we have to believe both sides. Okay, we listen to both sides, all right? And there's always two sides to every story. One person, you know, tells the truth. The other person maybe stretches the truth or lies. And then we are the ones that have to make that determination and, you know, and we have to listen to everything. We listen to other witnesses, and hopefully we make a decision and say, well, you know, we believe your story, or no, we don't believe your story, and we'll tell you why. And this is why. All right?
What if, like, the person is bugging you at the door, and you call, whoops, you call...
Good babysitter, she drops the baby on the floor.
He calls you, and he leaves before you come. And then you go back, but he comes again, and then he keeps leaving before you come.
We'll keep going, and you know what we'll do too is we'll keep an eye on the area. We'll patrol the area.
You know what you should do? Like, if the babysitter keeps coming, like, on the third or fourth time, like, bring 2 cops and have both cops find them, one cop come out. So.
Well, see, you know, the thing is too, when you call the police for help, we could be right on the street that you're calling us from. Because the police cars, they just drive around in the area and they just patrol the streets in Londonderry. And when you call the police station. And the police station gets on the radio and they call the officers in the police cars and find out where they are. And they tell them where they need to go. And sometimes we're right on that street, you know? It's just luck sometimes that we're right there or right around the corner. Anybody have any other questions? They're all yours. You're welcome.
When calling the police, a common mistake is A, staying calm, B, giving the phone number where you are, C, giving your own address, D, keeping a level head. The answer is C.
You know, if I answer the phone at the police station and ask you, well, what's your address? What do you think people tell us sometimes? The address where they live, not the address where they're babysitting.
When the child goes outside, the babysitter, A, watches from the window, B, reads a book, C, takes a nap, D, goes outside also. The answer is D.
Kid goes outside and he plays. Go outside with him. Don't say, go ahead, go outside and I'll stay in the house, watch TV.
The phone rings when you are outside. You, A, run to answer quickly. B, take the child with you to the telephone. C, do not bother to answer. D, tell the child to wait for you to return. The answer is B.
What if you're outside, right, and you're playing with the child and the phone rings? Take him with you. Don't leave him outside.
If you lose sight of the child, you should A, not waste time, call the police. B, search for the child for 10 minutes. C, call the parents. D, run to a neighbor. The answer is A.
You're not going to get in trouble. Call us. Right? It's a lot quicker for us to get down there. And the sooner you call, the sooner we can get down, the sooner we can start looking for the child.
A divorced father comes to the door. You should A, let him in. B, let him take his child. C, call the mother. D, take money from him. The answer is C.
At that point, okay, if she would call the mother, and if the mother said no, and the father was still there, what would you do? Right, you call us.
When babysitting at night, you should A, lock doors. B, lock windows. C, close shades. D, put a light on outside. E, all of the above. The answer is E.
Make sure your windows are locked, your doors are locked. How about the shades? Huh? Pull down the shades? Okay. One of the things you might want to ask the people as well is, can I leave a light on outside?
During an emergency phone call, you should A, shout into the phone. B, talk real fast. C, stay calm. D, hang up after giving your message. The answer is C.
Yeah, first thing, stay calm. Don't overreact, don't panic.
When you report something to the police, they will A, not believe you. B, think you are joking. C, tell you not to call again. D, investigate, be impartial, try to make the right decision. The answer is D.
What we have to do is we have to stay impartial, which means we listen and we look into everything, and from there, after we've talked to everybody, we make a decision. And hopefully we make that right decision.
should you have a severe, severe thunderstorm, or you can tell when a severe thunderstorm's coming. You know how you can hear the rumbling in the back?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing you need to do is to unplug the televisions. Unplug all the televisions, because perhaps not so much now that we all have cables, but if you have any antennas on top of the roofs, occasionally the lightning will hit the antenna and it will follow down and into the house. But if you've disconnected the television, the likelihood of that happening is not as great. Yes? What I was going to say is don't even begin to wonder if they've got cable or not. Just unplug it. If you're bathing a child and you hear a thunderstorm coming, immediately get the child out of the bathtub, because again, particularly here in New Hampshire, if the lightning should strike a water pipe or well, the lightning it will follow water, and it's apt to come up into the drain pipe, into the bathroom. The likelihood of that happening is not very great, but it has happened before. So no showers or baths during a lightning and thunderstorm. No telephoning. Now, we're not going to telephone anyway, are we? So that's really not anything for me to be concerned about. But should the telephone ring during a thunderstorm, pick it up and say, "I'm sorry, we're having a severe thunderstorm, please call back." Don't talk on the phone during a thunderstorm. Stay inside. I know that's a silly thing to tell you girls, but I do have to tell you that. If you see those big black rumbling clouds coming, get yourself and the children inside. Close the windows. And above all else, if the lightning strikes some utility poles and you don't have any lights, do not light any candles. What are you going to do if you don't have any electricity and it is dark, dark? What are you going to do?
You should have brought a flashlight.
That's right. Use your own flashlight. Should the child that you're babysitting for have a small cut, you wash it off with some soap and water or a disinfectant and put a Band-Aid on it. Now you're going to know where all these things are because you've asked the parent ahead of time, haven't you? Yes. So you know where the Band-Aids are, you know where the disinfectant, if there is any disinfectant, and you certainly know where the soap and water is. Do not put any ointment or anything on a child at all. If the mother does, that's fine, but don't you. If your mother always puts something on your cuts, don't you put that same thing on this little child's cuts. Just wash it off with soap and water and put a Band-Aid on it. If the child has a very, very, very large cut, a really deep, deep cut, and it's bleeding, you can see the blood is just splurting out, there are two things you can do real, real quickly if it's on the hand. The first thing you do is just do that. You can put your hand right over it. If you have a cloth, or if you have a dish towel that's clean, or if you have a blanket or anything, you can put that over it and hold it. If you don't have anything in your hand, just put your hand right over it and elevate. And what would the next thing you do? Who? No. Call, yes, the ambulance. So call the fire department. Tell them that you have a child who's cut themselves, is bleeding profusely, and who's the last one to hang up? Yes. If a child is cut on the leg, very severe, and it's spurting blood, what would you do? Kristen? Yes, you would, or something. It's better to take a cloth or something, a clean face cloth or clean towel, but if you don't have that handy, what would you do? Yes, and then what would you do? Would you do something else first? Would you have the child stand? Right, elevate the leg. Right. Don't attempt to wash it out. Don't attempt to do anything to it. If it's a large, large cut, do exactly what I told you and call the fire department. Tell them you need an ambulance because the child has just cut themselves severely. If a child burns themselves while they're in your care, again, the likelihood of any of these things happening is not very great because you have learned how to keep your child safe. But accidents do happen. If a child just has a very small burn, baby accidentally has touched the side of something that's hot, you just run that under cold water. It will make it feel better. It will prevent it from blistering, and you put a Band-Aid on it. If a child has burned themselves and the layer of skin has come off, just put some clean cloth over it and call the parents. If the child has, by some grave accident, gotten into some chemicals underneath the sink, it shouldn't happen because you're going to be watching them. But if it happens and the chemicals are poured on the skin and the skin burns, even if the skin has come off of the area, if it's a chemical burn as opposed to a heat burn, you must run it under cold water for 15 minutes. And you can tell the child to keep the hand under cold water while you're calling the ambulance. If a child gets into that underneath sink again and drinks something, or if they take something they're not supposed to take, like they found a bottle of aspirin, the very first thing you do is to grab the bottle of whatever it is the child has taken, take the bottle and the child in a very calm manner and call the Poison Control Center. They will tell you exactly what to do. You call them before you call the ambulance. This is the only time you call somebody else before you call an ambulance. And the reason being is they may tell you something to do immediately before the ambulance comes. They will tell you, the Poison Control Center will tell you what to do. And when you dial the Poison Control Center, they'll answer it right away, and they will say to you, Poison Control Center, can you hold? And you say to them, no, this is an emergency. They do wait for your answer. You say, no, this is an emergency. So you will get to them in a second. Just as soon as as you dial and the phone rings, they will answer because they've done it for me before. And they will tell you exactly what to do. But they won't be able to tell you what to do if you don't have the bottle in front of you, if you will not be able to tell them what's in the thing that the child has taken. Very possible that your child is going to have a nosebleed. The simplest thing to do, if you can grab a tissue, fine. If the child is old enough to pinch his own nose, have him keep his head straight up, bent slightly forward, not like this, not like this, just kind of slightly forward, and pinch the nose. And don't pinch like this, you pinch like this. And you pinch, and you pinch, and you pinch, and you pinch, and don't let go. You might have to pinch up towards 15 minutes. At the end of 15 minutes, if the nose is still bleeding, call Mom. If the nose is bleeding so badly that the blood is gushing out its mouth and gushing through the pinching, call an ambulance. But that is, I have never had that happen. It's never even happened in an emergency room. So it's not going to happen to you. You're on.
Thank you. Okay, one of the things that yesterday we did a class, or I did a class yesterday at North School, and some of the questions were ones that probably I never would have dreamt of because it's been a few years since I've been babysitting. But so as Ms. Pluff said, if you have a question, please write it down and then I'd be glad to answer them for you. One of the reasons that I'm here is because there's been some incidents in Londonderry recently that show a need for some education in babysitting. And let me just tell you about one of them real quickly as it relates to the fire department. There was an incident not too many months ago where a young girl was babysitting. She was here in Londonderry, but she was not from Londonderry. She lived in the town of Litchfield. And during the course of the evening, they happened to be walking upstairs, and they looked out the window and saw a fire. This fire was an outside type fire, but it was around a small utility trailer filled with wood. So the potential was for a good-sized fire. This girl wasn't sure what to do, so she called her dad in Litchfield, which is probably 10 or 15 minutes away, and said, gee, Dad, there's a fire outside. So her father said, well, that's okay, little Susie, that's not really what her name is, but that's fine for now. Don't worry, I'll come over and check it out for you. So he drove the 10 or 15 or 10 miles, whatever it was, from Litchfield over to Londonderry and discovered, yes, there really was a fire, and hooked up the garden hose and put the fire out. Now, obviously, a couple of things were wrong with this, okay? What if this fire had been inside the house instead of outside the house? And first of all, little Susie should have said right away, when I see a fire, I should call the fire department, not my dad. And Susie's dad should have said, Susie, why are you calling me? Call the fire department, and I'll come over and help you, but at least get the fire department there to help out. Okay? What happened was Susie panicked. And what happens when you panic? Who knows? Yes?
You don't think.
Absolutely. Do you remember studying for a big spelling test? You know the words. You've studied all week long. And then it comes time for the test, and all of a sudden you're nervous, and you panic, and you say, oh, I can't remember anything. Your palms get all sweaty. You feel like you're swallowing cotton balls. And there in front of you are words that you've never seen before. And yet you just studied them last night. If you take a minute and relax, take a deep breath, in any of these emergency situations that we're going to talk about, things will not only go a lot easier for you, but chances are you'll do the right thing. Now, for those of you who have taken the CPR course, I'm going to mention this. I know you guys have, but I'm going to mention this many, many times. Don't panic. Whatever the circumstances are, don't panic. Okay? It's very, very important. Now, as far as babysitting goes, there is no more important job that you will ever do, whether it's working at Shaw's or Domino's or whatever, until you become parents yourselves. There is nothing more important than babysitting. If you're babysitting for me, my two children, I feel that, I'm leaving you with a enormous responsibility. And if that's the case, if I'm leaving you with this biggest responsibility that you'll ever have in your life, other than parenthood probably, you need to know certain things. You need to make sure that you know where I'm going. You need to know when I'm coming home, where I can be reached. Most of all, you need to know a lot of background information about my children. But more importantly, you know what to do in case of fire, in case of an accident, in case one of the children get hurt. And how are you going to find these things out? Who knows? Yes? Absolutely. It's okay to ask questions. If you're not sure about any particular thing that the parents are leaving you with, it's okay to ask questions. It's better that you ask before they leave than to sit there and worry about it for 3 hours while they're gone. Right? What are some of the important things that you need to know? What are just a couple of them? Yes?
Where you're going.
Okay. That's real good, because if you need to call me, you need to know where to call. Yes?
You have to know if you can't remember the numbers of the fire department, the police department, the fighting controls, and whatever's. The numbers.
Emergency phone numbers, everyone should have them beside the phone. I brought with me today some stickers. I'm not sure if Officer Dan left those with you yesterday, but if he didn't, you should take one for your own home and take a couple more for your next babysitting job. I can't guarantee you'll get a raise, but at least it'll show that you have a lot of initiative by bringing one of these. And there is not a parent that I can think of that would be insulted if you said, gee, Mrs. Jones, I can't seem to find any emergency phone numbers. Do you mind if I put one of these stickers on your phone? I think that was wonderful. I think that was showing a lot of initiative and a lot of thoughtfulness towards my children. What else would you need to know? Yes?
Where you are.
Yep, where I'm going to be, when I'll be home.
No, where?
Where? Oh, yes, exactly, where you are. If you needed to call for a fire truck or for a police officer, you need to know the correct address of where you're babysitting, right? You need to know, it would be nice to know the people's last names at least, and the exact location of the house, meaning the house number and the street. Very, very important. Yes?
Do children have any allergies or anything?
Absolutely. If the children are allergic to anything, Any medications that they might have to take? Yes. Bedtimes are always good. Do you suppose kids will ever tell you, my mom said I can stay up till midnight? Kids ever do that?
Yeah.
That's unrealistic. Yes.
Oh, yeah, if the children are afraid of something.
Mm-hmm. You know what else someone mentioned yesterday, too, that I thought was real interesting, too? Is anyone here allergic to cats? That's probably something you'd want to know before you took that babysitting job. If they have cats and you're allergic to cats, the whole time you're there, you're going to spend blowing your nose and wiping your eyes, right? So it would be good to know that. What else? What else about the children? Yes? If they're medications? Yep, very good. Yes?
If they can go outside.
Sure, where they can go, where they're not allowed to go, if they can have friends over, if they can't have friends over, yes.
What rooms are allowed in, rooms are not allowed
Mm-hmm. Very good. What rooms are allowed in? Yes.
What they can eat.
Right. How many of you here can cook? I better put my hand down because I can't. Very good. There are some important things you need to know. If you're going to be doing the cooking, are you going to be sending out for Domino's Pizza? And if you're going to be doing the cooking, what are you going to cook for them? And how are you going to do it safely? Right? If you have to cook and you're not sure about how to prepare a certain thing, you need to know that before they leave. You don't want to take a chance and try and cook something that you don't know how to do and risk burning the food or burning yourself or injuring one of the children. Do you have a blackboard here? I guess we don't. Okay. What else? There's some specifically now, what if the children had to be bathed? That's kind of important, right? If you have to give the children a bath, what do you do when you're giving the children a bath? What if the phone rings and you have to go in the other room? Yes?
You have to tie them in towel and take them with you.
Better still, let the phone ring. If it's real important, they'll call back. There's nothing more important than that child that's in the tub. If you leave and somehow the door gets closed behind you and you can't get back inside, then you have maybe a 2-year-old child inside a tub. The reason I bring that up is because I just went on one of those calls maybe 2 weeks ago. This woman who was not babysitting, this was her own child, had a 2-year-old girl in a bathtub, giving her a bath, and the phone rang. And somehow the button on the doorknob got pushed, and the door closed. The wind blew the door closed, and it locked behind her. She went to answer the phone. When she came back, she couldn't get into and the child was alone in the tub. Now, had she tried to get out, had the child panicked and tried to get out, she may have fallen in the tub, bumped her head, landed in the water, and who knows what would have happened. So the woman called us and said, can you help me get into the bathroom? Most bathroom doors, by the way, almost all bathroom doors, doorknobs, have a little hole in the middle. Do you know what those are for? Yes? Yes, it's got you can either use a nail or a small piece of a coat hanger. And if you're going to do a lot of babysitting, I suggest you make one. Have your parents or someone make one for you. Just a 6-inch piece of coat hanger, put a loop at the other end, and if anyone ever gets locked in the bathroom, you just stick the coat hanger in the hole and it pops the lock open. Absolutely, it works great. I have one in my fire coat. That's how many calls we have for people getting locked in bathrooms. But it's very, very important that if you're bathing the child, that you don't leave that child alone in the bathtub. And if you, yes?
Well, I think someone said yesterday that it would be better to take the kid out because the parents could be calling thinking that something's wrong and
Well, we're only talking probably a few minutes. You know what I mean? Rather than rush and, quickly grab the child and, that's basically my opinion. You will hear others, but I think that if it's very, very important, if it were me calling to see that everything was all right, I'd call back in just a few minutes. Yeah. Some of the other things that you might want to know are some cooking safety tips, right? Very important. Always turn pot handles in, obviously, right? What if the child was just tall enough to reach the stove and you were boiling water for spaghetti or something like that? And they reached up and grabbed the pot handle they could dump that boiling water right over on top of him, okay? So it's important to make sure the pot handles are turned in, and it's also important that you're watching the child while you're cooking. Sometimes you're really busy, you know, preparing a meal, but it's important that the child not be right there beside you, because if the child is small enough and curious enough to see what's going on top of the stove, he or she could reach up to see what's going on and put their hands on top of the burner. The reason I say that is because that happened not too long ago, too. So it's very important that you are aware of what's going on all the time, okay? So if you have to do some cooking, find out, first of all, if you're able and have the experience in cooking whatever it is you have to make. Make sure the pot handles are turned in so that there's not a bunch of little fingers reaching up there for the pot handles, and also make sure that while you're cooking, that the water's not boiling over or in a place where a child could get burned. Okay? Some of the other things to consider are when you're babysitting, if you're in a house that you're not familiar with, this is really kind of important. And say you were babysitting for me for the first time, and I called you and said, my wife and I would like to go out at 7:15. How about if I pick you up at 6:30? And by the time I pick you up and get you back to our house, it'll be time for me to go. You might suggest to the prospective customer that you have, since I've never been to your home before and I'm not really familiar with your children, how about if you pick me up at 20 after, and that'll give me 10 minutes so that you can walk through your house with me, show me everything you need to know, where the fire extinguishers are, where the smoke detectors are, where the exits are, and I can familiarize myself with your children. Can you imagine being picked up, dropped off, strange house, and someone saying to you, I have 3 kids. I think they're out in the yard playing, and stuff in the refrigerator for supper, see you later, bye. Does that ever happen to anybody? That's scary, isn't it? Isn't that awful? Really? Well, maybe we should be doing these education classes for adults instead of children. I can't imagine someone doing that, but it happens every day. Every single day, people are chosen to babysit because you're good at it, because Mrs. Pluff and the other nurses in the schools take time to teach you the right way to do things. So if you become a good babysitter, everybody wants you. Everybody wants you to come to their house and babysit for them. But parents have to be considerate too, and they need to tell you certain things. And it's very important that you know how a house is or what a house looks like inside. You can't wait till there's a disaster or a fire to try and find the back door, or how to get out of a house from the basement. You can't wait till something happens. You need to know before. So as this person or the adults are taking you through the house, you can look for certain things. You can look for smoke detectors. You can look for fire extinguishers. If you can't find them, ask them where they have, or if they have them and where they are. And you also need to know where the doors are. For example, if, say, a typical ranch-style house has a front door and a back door, and maybe a sliding door off the dining room or a sliding door off the master bedroom, okay? You need to know that if, for example, the smoke detector was going off, and by the time you aroused the children and got them up into the hallway, you looked down the hall and said, I can't get out that way, the fire's too bad or the smoke's too bad. You need to know that if there's another way out through the glass sliders in the master bedroom, you need to know where that is. Okay, once you get outside with the children, or let's back up one step. You wake the children up and you say, come on, we have to get outside. What's the best way to get outside during a fire? Yes?
Crawl.
Crawl. Get down as low as you can, crawl on your hands and knees as quickly as possible, stay together as a group, and get outside. Yes? Okay, once you get outside, now, it's very important. Last October when we spoke to all of the schools, we talked about home fire drills, okay, and meeting places outside. It would be important for you to ask this customer or the person you're babysitting for
if there's a specific meeting place. Because if these kids have a meeting place, and say you were downstairs watching television and the smoke detector went off, you went upstairs to get the kids and they'd already left. They went out the back way. You need to be able to check that meeting place to make sure that if the kids are missing, that's exactly where they are. Okay? Because when the kids get outside, that's where they're going to go. So you need to know where that meeting place is. And again, once you get to that meeting place, say there are 3 children, yourself and 3 children, you need to stay there and don't go back in. What would you go back in for? Yes? No. Yes? Nope. Yes? Yeah.
Nothing.
Great. Anybody going to say anything other than nothing? Yes?
Call the fire department.
No. No. Yes? Absolutely. Once you get outside with the children, you don't go back in for any reason. You know, not the child's cat or dog or Barbie doll. Absolutely. When the fire department gets there, you tell them that I believe there's still a child inside and it would be in the bedroom area because I couldn't get there for whatever reason. But once you're outside with the majority of the children, you don't go back in for the other child. You can't, because what's going to happen to the children that you had already left outside, if you don't come back out, they're probably going to go looking for you. And then when we get there, we'll find you all inside instead of maybe just one of you. You know, basically speaking, big fires don't happen like right away, okay? So it's possible that if it was just a very small or something minor, you may be able to call the fire department from there. But if things are getting bad, if it's getting hard to breathe and there's a lot of smoke in the house, get outside. If the house burns to the ground and you're taking care of my children and my children get out safely and you get out safely, I don't care. I really don't. Because you've done what I wanted you to do. You've taken care of the best possible care for my children. My house I can replace. You and my children I cannot ever replace. Fire in the oven, great. What do you do if there's a fire in the oven? Who knows? Yes?
Call the fire department, then they'll give you instructions of like how to put it
Okay. Okay, the first thing you want to do is shut the oven off, right? Because you know how the fire triangle works? On one side is fuel, on the other side is heat, and then there's oxygen. And if you take any one of the elements away, the fire will go out. Well, if you shut the heat off in the oven, eventually the fire will go out. As long as the fire is contained inside the oven, it's not going to go anywhere. And the worst that it can do is make the inside of the stove black, which is not a big deal. What really gets kind of serious is when there's a fire inside the oven and for whatever reason somebody decides to open the door to see what's going on and either get their face burned or the fire gets outside the oven. Yeah. The first thing you should do in any case, whether it's a chimney fire, a stove fire, oven fire, whatever, is call the fire department. That's what we're here for. And basically speaking, we do the same thing. We try and take the heat away or we try and cut the oxygen off to a chimney fire. What you need to do is nothing. Just call the fire department, okay? Which brings up another question. Hang on to your questions just 1 minute. How many people babysat like last winter when it was real cold out? All right, is there anyone here who was required to do anything to a wood stove while they were babysitting? Like, did the owners of the house say, the wood stove's going and I want you to put wood in or coal or anything like that? Yesterday when I was at North School, there were 2 people who were required to put wood into a wood stove, which, if they ask, you know, is there anyone here who takes care of a wood stove at home? Do you? Okay. You probably know, and hopefully your parents have taken a lot of time and patience and understanding in showing you the proper way to deal with your own particular wood stove. If you ever come up in a situation where you're babysitting and someone says to you, I want you to, you know, at 10:30, I want you to put 5 sticks of wood inside the wood stove, say, I'm sorry, but Lieutenant Spahn told me not to do that. And they can call me. Because What's wrong with that is you may know all there is to know about your wood stove, but almost all wood stoves are different. They have different damper locations, different ways of air control, and you can get burned. Serious things can happen. You could open the stove and a log could roll out, and then what do? You know, you've got, not only you've got a problem, but so do the children in the house. Hopefully, parents would never put you in that situation, but I found two just yesterday who are expected to put wood in their wood stove, and I don't think that that's a really good idea. I think too many bad things can happen at that, trying to do that. The same with coal. If they say to you, you know, dump half a bag of coal in the stove at 10 o'clock. Yes?
What if, like, I don't know, summertime and you cook on the grill outside and it started a fire?
Okay. Gas grills, this time of year, are probably 20% of our calls. We get a lot of calls for gas grills. And basically speaking, what happens is, you know, on the container, on the top of the container is a little valve, and you turn the valve on, the gas goes up into a little pipe, and that's what feeds the gas grill. And if the fire is in a position where you can do this, you can just reach over and turn the valve off. And eventually the fire will go out because there'll be no more of a source to that. If you can't do that readily, if it doesn't look like it's going to happen real easily, just leave it alone and call the fire department. In any case, you should call the fire department, and then we can come over and check the bottle to make sure it's safe to use again. Okay? Remember that if you're dealing with a wood stove or a coal stove, unless these people unless you have been sitting for these people for 2 or 3 years, and they've spent a lot of time showing you how to operate their wood stove, and you're comfortable with it, other than a scenario like that, I would say, tell them that you can't do it, because it just doesn't make sense for you to do that. I really like this story because I found out yesterday as I was talking to the kids at North School, I found out who it was, because I couldn't remember it. It had been a long time. But anyway, you have to imagine this. Has anybody here ever made French fries at home? Boy, you people really do some cooking, don't you? Is there anybody here looking for a job? Because we don't cook very well at the fire station. Just kidding. Okay, this young boy came home from school one day. He was about 12, I think, 11 or 12. And he decided he was going to make French fries. And I think that he had seen his mother do this maybe before, but never using this particular way. You know, on top of the burner, there are 4 burners on top of the stove. He decided to cook French fries in a frying pan that was about this deep. So he filled the pan full of oil, cooking oil, and then he decided to put the burner on high and go downstairs and play Nintendo or watch TV or something. So when he came back upstairs, quite a while later, to get ready to put the French fries in, the whole pan, the top of the pan was burning, with flames shooting up all over the place. So he said, well, here's a fire, I'll take care of it. So he went to the sink, filled a pan full of water, threw it on the hot burning oil. So what happened? What do you think happened? Yes. Yep, you. Pardon me? No, actually he didn't. What happened?
I made it worse.
Sure, because what happens when you mix water with a grease fire? It just spreads it out all over the place, right? Because water is lighter than the grease, so it didn't put the fire out, it just spread it out all over the place. So now the cabinets were starting to burn, and the counter was starting to burn, and he thought, well, I suppose there's one more thing I can try. So this pan had been burning, by the way, for about a half an hour, so you can imagine how hot it was. He reached over and he was going to put the pan in the sink, which would have been okay, but he never got it that far. He grabbed the pan right about to here, and then he dropped it because it was too hot. So now the floor is burning, the rug is burning, and luckily his pants weren't, but the cabinets underneath were burning, and the house is filling up with smoke. By this time, real panic has set in, and he was just sort of screaming. And he decided, well, you know, now would probably be a good time to call the fire department. So he ran outside, next door, which was a great idea, left the door open so that all that oxygen could feed the fire. and called the fire department and said, I have a kitchen fire. And so we got there, and he was right, he had a kitchen fire. By then, most of the cabinets were gone, and what ones were left were really going pretty good, and the fire had filled the whole kitchen. And this was a really big, big house. And smoke was throughout the whole house. And by the time we finished spraying water to put the cabinets out, the sheetrock was hanging down from the ceiling. And the place was generally a mess. And about that time, Mom came home. And believe me, Mom was not happy. I think it was probably a long, long time before that particular kid ever went to the movies again or anything. Maybe years. Yeah, or sat down too, yeah. But a couple of things happened that are really important about this, okay? How would you handle that kind of fire? Yes? Okay, that's number one. Call the fire department, right? How would you have handled it?
I would have put the lid on there.
Great. What would happen if you put the lid on? What would happen? Yes? Sure. And without the oxygen, it would have gone out, right? Yes. How else could you have done that?
Put baking soda over it.
Baking soda, sugar, flour. Yes. Fire extinguisher? Yeah, basically you could have. But I think putting the cover on was the easiest way, right? Put the cover on. Just drop it on, or slide it on from the side. Okay? Just start at one side and just keep pushing it over. Always use a pot holder though, right? I mean, I think probably he might have made it to the sink if he was using a pot holder, but instead he just burned his hands. Someone was mentioning yesterday taking it off the heat, you know, or shutting the burner off. That was real good. But if the pan is burning, don't, or at least try not to move it. It's too easy for it to tip over, and once it does, all that burning oil goes out, and the end result is you won't go to the movies or sit down for a long time. Yes? Exactly. Actually, he shouldn't have moved it at all. But if you're going to move it, at least use some protection for you. Let me tell you a good story, though, and this just happened recently. There are good stories, too. Not too long ago, this was an adult mistake as opposed to a child mistake, but this woman was cooking spaghetti sauce, and you know how you let spaghetti sauce simmer all day long? Well, somehow, a ghost or somebody came in and turned it from simmer up to medium-high. And what happened was this spaghetti sauce just started to boil in the pan, and it got hotter and hotter and hotter. And somehow, it caught fire. After many hours of supposedly simmering, it was on when we finally got the fire out, the knob was melted on medium-high, so that's probably what happened. But for one reason or another, this woman went away and left this pot, what she thought was simmering on the stove, it actually was on medium-high for many hours, 3 or 4 hours. It started a fire. Much like the other fire, it started to spread from the counter into the cabinets and those kinds of things. And this young boy, about 10 years old, came home from school and found it, just as it was starting to burn. And he was home by himself and his younger brother. Walked into the kitchen, found it starting to fill up with smoke and burning, recognized what was happening, ran to the counter where the canisters were, took a canister of flour and a canister of sugar and poured it over the whole thing and put the fire out in like 2 seconds or 3 seconds or whatever. Saved his whole house and, you know, really did a great job. Nothing more than any of you could do. Forget about cooking. There are other ways, too. What are some of the things that kids could get into that you could make sure aren't left hanging around? Yes? Medicine. Sure. Medicine, let's see. What else?
Plugs.
Plugs. Make sure the electrical, you know, that they don't stick their finger in electrical sockets. Those are real kind of dangerous. Lighters. Have you ever been babysitting where people leave these little butane lighters around? Absolutely. Those things are terrible. Actually, they should be banned because they have gas in them, and they've been known to explode. Not often, but it's happened. The other thing that's important too is kids will mimic whatever their parents do, and if they see their parents flicking their bic, kids like to try that, and they're just very likely to play with those kinds of things and start a fire. If you see those left on a coffee table or on a counter while you're babysitting, maybe just put them up on top of the refrigerator out of the way. What are some of the other things? Yes?
I have a question. Well, I have to say something about that grease fire thing.
Mm-hmm.
It happened to my sister too. Well, the pan started to burn out, and she picked it up too. I think she had a pot holder, but that kid, if he had gotten a burn, I mean, just one mistake was bad enough, but I mean, burning himself too. I mean, that was really.
Well, I'm sure he didn't plan on that, but it just, yeah, it was. It was not a. It was sort of a. Things went downhill right from the very start, and I'm sure he'll never do it again. But yes.
Don't leave rags around the stove.
Yeah, if you're cooking, if you have to cook, you can. You don't want to, wear loose clothing and kind of hang it out over the on the burners and things. How about matches? Where should you leave matches? Yes. Absolutely. Maybe in a cabinet on top of the refrigerator if the parents leave them around. Just keep them out of the way from children. What if the power goes out? Who has an answer? Yes. Absolutely. No candles unless that's all there is in the house. And if there is, make sure they're inside a dish, in case, a large dish. And if the candle's only this big, make sure the dish is a lot bigger than the candle, just in case it, for some reason, tips over. And if you have to use candles, only use one, and keep it right with you. Okay? Preferably, you should use flashlights. And maybe that's something you should check with the parents before they leave about, and just ask them if they have a flashlight available in case the power goes out. Yes? That's even better. If at all possible, bring your own. That way you don't have to ask either, but that's good. Yes? Unplug the TV if the power goes out? Is that what you're going to say? Sure. Yep. That's not as much of a problem as it used to be. Used to be, the reason for that was because antennas that were on top of the roof were great conductors of electricity. But nowadays, everybody has cable TV, so that's not as serious a problem. If you don't have cable, what if they don't? Unplug the TV. You can unplug the TV to be sure anyway. If there's anything that you're not sure about, do it. If the matches don't look like they're up high enough, move them. If the lighter doesn't look like it's in the right place, move it. If there's a thunderstorm and the power goes out, unplug the TV. Where would you find, this might go along with the touring the house before you started babysitting, but where would you normally find an electrical panel? Yes?
In the basement or in the closet?
Okay, in the basement, but where in the basement? Yes?
In the garage?
Yeah, but basically speaking, on what wall would you find a basement? Yes?
The wall by the stairs.
You would find, well, sort of. Depends on the house, but this is just a rule of thumb, okay? Something to keep in mind. If you're looking for an electrical panel, go outside and look up and see how the wire comes into the house. Okay? You know how the wire comes into the house? That wall is where you'll find the electrical panel. They won't run wires all the way around to the other end of the house. If you're looking to see, you know how they have a meter on the side of the house? If you're in a hurry and you need to find it right away, and say it's dark and you don't want to be stumbling around the basement, go outside real quick, look to see where the meter and the wire is, and that's the wall that you want to look for downstairs. Because that's where and when you get downstairs, the electric panel will be there. Has everyone ever seen an electric panel? Do you know what it looks like? It has a whole bunch of switches on, probably on two sides. But right in the very middle of it will be a big black switch, and it'll say main on it. If someone is being electrocuted in another portion of the house or has received an electrical shock and you can't get near them, if you reach up and pull that main switch down, it'll shut all the power off to the house. keep in mind when you do that, it's also going to get dark right away. So if you're going to go shut the power off, you should bring your flashlight with you. Yes? Yes, the girl in the yellow. That's you.
What if you don't have a basement?
It'll still be on the wall, even if you don't have a basement, it'll still be on the wall where the meter is. And they all have meters, because that's how public service gets to charge you money. Yes. Keep one for yourself, and keep a couple in your pocketbooks or in your wallets or whatever, so that the next time you go to a babysitting job, if they don't have a sticker on their phone, just say, gee, this is so-and-so, I'd like to put a sticker on your phone so that I'm sure of who to call in case of an emergency. Okay, as soon as everyone gets one of these, there's a couple of items in here I want to talk about with you. While those are being passed out, let's just talk about that grease fire one more time. And I think the point that illustrates the most, or what sticks out the most about any one of these emergencies, is the fact that the person panicked. Okay? If you can keep your cool and not get overexcited, I think you'll do just fine. Has Mrs. Pluff has talked to you about some first aid things, like what to do for cuts and burns and things like that? Can I borrow your arm for just a minute? I promise I'll give it back. What's your name?
Catherine.
What if Catherine was 5 years younger, and she was riding her bicycle out in the driveway, and I'm the babysitter. And all of a sudden, one of the kids came running in and said, "Oh, quick, come out and look, Catherine just fell and cut her arm really bad, and it's gross." Okay? So there's two ways to react to this, okay? I'm going to come out and look at Catherine's arm and go, "Oh, Catherine, that looks awful. I can't look at that. You know, it's just, oh, that's terrible here," right? It's, oh, so gross. Okay, how is Catherine going to feel if I act like that? Somebody hasn't answered in a while. Yes. In the yellow again. Yes. What's your name? Oh, how is Catherine going to react if I treat her that way? Who knows? Yes. Yeah, Catherine was pretty sure when she cut her arm that it was probably going to fall off, right? This is terrible. This is the worst thing that could happen to her. You got to remember, Catherine is only 5 years old at this time. We're talking when Catherine was very young, okay? And by me saying, "Oh, Catherine, that looks terrible," I've just told her that, yes, she's right, it's awful. And she's probably going to have her arm cut off at the elbow, right? But what if I said, "Oh, Catherine, you cut your arm, but that's okay, I can help you. Take out your handkerchief, put it over," right? You may not want to look at the bloody cut. She doesn't want to look at it, but if you put something over it, neither one of you have to look at it anymore, right? And what else have I done? I've told Catherine that it's going to be okay. I'm holding her hand. I've reassured her, calmed her down, and basically, thank you, Catherine, that's all that first aid is. Sometimes you don't have to do any more than hold a person's hand to make them feel a lot better. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to do first aid. You just have to put yourself in their position, and they're scared. They're absolutely petrified that something bad has happened to them, and you need to reassure them. Remember when you were smaller, when you were, 5 or 6 years ago, when you were little kids, and you fell? Who was the first person you went to? Mommy, right? Or Daddy, or whoever was there, right? Why did you go to them? Yes? You needed to be reassured, right? And you knew that they were going to take care of it. Whatever happened, that they were going to be able to take care of it. That's why, if you're the babysitter, you have to be the parent. You have to make the decisions. You have the responsibility. If someone gets hurt, it's your job to be the mommy and to reassure that child that everything's going to be okay. Yes? Oh, believe me, accidents still happen. As I said, if they didn't, I wouldn't have a job. There'd be nothing for me to do. Accidents still happen. You could be watching this child ride his bike, and then he fell off. That happens a lot. Okay? You can have the best intentions in the world to be the best babysitter that there is, and still accidents are going to happen. Something you should always remember, okay? First of all, again, the original topic here was don't panic, and that's something that, you know, it's not going to be an easy thing to do. When Catherine cut her arm, right, and I said, oh, Catherine, everything's going to be fine. If there are 2 or 3 other kids around, you've got them to deal with, too, in a crisis, you know, when an emergency happens. And they're going to be screaming and yelling, oh, Catherine cut her arm, you know. You've got to control the situation, all right? Try not to panic. And one other thing I want to tell you, and I'm sure that Officer Dan must have told you this yesterday, if you're concerned about anything, whether it's a phone call that you get that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, someone comes to the door, you smell something burning inside the house and you can't find it, there's a problem with the wood stove, there's a problem with the VCR or the TV, by all means call. That's what we're here for. Don't worry, or don't sit there and be concerned about it for 3 or 4 hours while the parents are gone, trying to decide whether you should call or not. If it concerns you and if it worries you, then it's okay to call. It really and truly is. And if you're babysitting for a parent who is all upset when they get home because you did something like that and it turned out to be nothing, then possibly you probably don't need to babysit for them. Because what you're trying to do is look out for the best interest of yourself and of their children. And if that means calling the fire department if you're not sure what the problem is, then that's what you need to do. Don't ever be afraid to call, even if it seems so silly to you, because it could be a serious problem. And the other thing is there's no reason for you to sit there for 3 or 4 hours and be scared or be worried about something. Yes?
Oh, what is the jaws of death?
Jaws of life.
Oh.
Okay, the jaws of life are it's a set of tools, and what they're used for is they run hydraulically, some are run with air pressure, but basically the ones that we have they run off a little lawnmower engine, no bigger than this, and they have many, many tons of pressure, and they're used to pry open doors. We have cutters on them as well. We can cut the roof of your car off. If any of you want your parents' car made into a convertible, you can just bring it to the fire station and we'll take care of it. 4 cuts and it's gone. We'll just take the roof right off. It's a very expensive tool, as a matter of fact. I'm glad you asked that because we have about $15,000 worth of equipment that was donated by different organizations from London area, and it never really cost the fire department anything, or the taxpayers. And we've saved many lives with it. Probably 2 or 3 a year have been saved with the JAWS. Let me just talk about this for 1 minute. If you open these, yeah, you can look on with me. What you need to do is plan your escape, okay? These are the things we talked about earlier. Know 2 ways out, get out and stay out, and go to a meeting place. Now, this is similar to what we were talking about before. Make sure that if you're babysitting for someone who has a predetermined meeting place, that you find out what that meeting place is. Because if things go bad inside the house and there's a fire, these kids are liable to go to that meeting place and not even wait for you to come and get them. Call the fire department. By all means, call the fire department, okay? Don't think that maybe somebody else is going to call or something else, you know, don't hesitate. Call the fire department as soon as there's a problem. Okay, just hold your questions just for a minute till we finish doing this. If you can't get to the children, and heaven forbid this ever happens, but if it ever happens and you can't get to the children, the information that we are going to need to know from you is how many children are left inside and which end of the house, basically which rooms they may still be in. Now, for example, say you were downstairs watching television, the smoke detector went off upstairs, you started down the hallway and you could not, the fire just drove you back, okay? And you went and called the fire department. We'd need to know from you, when we got there, what rooms and how many children were inside so we'd know where to concentrate all of our efforts first. All right? Okay, it says right here, in case of fire, you are in charge. In case of any emergency, you are in charge. So if you're in charge, you're the person who's not going to panic, right? Everybody kind of nod their heads, yes? All right, great. And for burns, you put butter or aloe vera or any of that stuff on burns? Mayonnaise? I've heard that one before. What do you put on burns? Burn cream? No. Water. Just water. Okay? Burn cream a couple days or a day or so later. When the person first has a burn or burns themselves, you need, number one, to cleanse the burn, but more importantly, what you need to do is cool it off. It's hot, that's why it burns. And if you cover it with oil or butter or anything else, all you're doing is smothering that heat inside, and it's not going to make it feel any better. Okay? Cool it with water. Be kitchen-wise. Don't make French fries. It doesn't say that here, but if you're going to do that stuff, be sure you do it carefully. Turn pot handles in. Know enough about a microwave oven not to put metal containers in. Pots and pans that have metal on them aren't going to work. Important things to write down, and you might, if you have access to a mimeograph machine, maybe you should make some copies of this. Where the parents are going, the complete address of, not only, there's two lines here, the complete address of where they're going and the complete address of where you're babysitting. Absolutely, you need to know that. If you're going to call a fire department for an emergency, we need to know where you are. Just telling me, hi, this is Susie, I'm babysitting, I have a fire, is not going to tell us much. Yes? Great. Super. Where'd you get those? Officer Dan. Wonderful. Super. Those are very, very good. And be sure you fill them out each time you babysit. All right? And important numbers, fire department. This is put up by the fire department, so the fire department number always gets to be first. Emergency medical service and where the parents can be reached, and the name of a neighbor. Okay, it's very important that you remember one thing, okay? Anyone can be a babysitter, anyone. But to be a good babysitter takes some time and it takes some work, and you really have to work at it to be very good. But once you become a good babysitter, there's no end to the number of babysitting jobs you can get. The demand is unbelievable for really good babysitters. And if you're going to do this job, if you're going to be a babysitter, whether you're going to get paid for it or you're going to babysit your brothers and sisters, you should do it correctly, and you should do it to the best of your ability. And I hope that you do. And if you ever have a question or if you ever have a problem, feel free to call us anytime. We work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, so we're always there. Okay? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Wonderful.
Good.
My expectations of you, now that you've finished this class, are that you know how to be perfect babysitters, which means that not only are you going to be good babysitters, but when you get to be another 15 or 20 years older, you're going to make wonderful parents because you know how to handle children. You understand children, you know how to keep them safe, you know how to properly discipline them, and above all else, you know how much love that they need. And you know that is the first and the most important thing, other than keeping the child safe, that you can do for a child. I expect you to be courteous to the parents. I expect you to show the child that you're babysitting for the same respect that you like to be shown to yourselves. And I thank you for being such wonderful little babysitting participants.
If a child has a severe cut on an arm or leg, you A. Apply pressure, B. Elevate the limb, C. Call the ambulance, D. All of the above. The answer is D.
You don't have anything in your hand, just put your hand right over it and elevate. And what would the next thing you do? Who?
No. Call, yes, the ambulance. So call the fire department. If a child has a nosebleed, you should A, have the child blow his nose. B, tip the child's head back. C, pinch the child's nose. D, tip the child's head forward. The answer is C. If the child is old enough to pinch his own nose, have him keep his head straight up, bent slightly forward, not like this, just kind of slightly forward, and pinch the nose. And don't pinch like this, you pinch like this. Whatever the circumstances are when babysitting, you must not A, call for help. B, enjoy yourself. C, panic. D, watch television. The answer is C.
I'm going to mention this many, many times. Don't panic. Whatever the circumstances are, don't panic.
Go early to your babysitting job so you can A, walk through the house. B, check for smoke detectors and extinguishers. C, find all the doors. D, all of the above. The answer is D.
How about if you pick me up at 20 after, and that'll give me 10 minutes so that you can walk through your house with me, show me everything you need to know, where the fire extinguishers are, where the smoke detectors are, where the exits are, and I can familiarize myself with your children.
What would you go back to the house for during a fire? A, another child. B, a dog. C, nothing. D, your pocketbook. The answer is C.
Once you get outside with the children, you don't go back in for any reason. You know, not the child's cat or dog or Barbie doll.
What must a fire have in order to burn? A, fuel. B, heat. C, oxygen. D, all of the above. The answer is D.
Because you know how the fire triangle works? On one side is fuel, on the other side is heat, and then there's oxygen. And if you take any one of the elements away, the fire will go out.
The best way to put out a cooking oil fire is A, spray it with water. B, cover the pan. C, call your mother. D, move the pan outside. The answer is B.
What would happen if you put the lid on? What would happen? Yes? Sure. And without the oxygen, it would have gone out, right?
A very important element in first aid is A, memorizing the first aid manual. B, carrying a first aid kit. C, giving reassurance. D, calling the ambulance. The answer is C.
And what else have I done? I've told Catherine it's going to be okay. I'm holding her hand. I've reassured her, calmed her down, and basically, thank you, Catherine, that's all that first aid is.